got a question? He's got the answer.
All right, I'm really excited about this segment. This, to me, I think is becoming my favorite segment on the show, and I'll tell you, it's because I get to interact with you guys directly. This is a way that I can actually reach out and have conversations with you. And if you guys have a question that you'd like me to answer on the air, you can ask it in several different ways. You can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. You can post your questions on our Facebook page, facebook.com/onthemoveshow. You can tweet us at OnTheMoveShow, or and actually, when you do tweet, make sure that you include the hashtag AskMack. All right. So I'll read all your questions if you have anything, or you can call us, like I said, 619-924-0986, and I'll do my best the best of my ability to answer your questions. Angie, she asked a question, and she had a 3-part question last week, and I wasn't able to get to the last one. So I want to get to it now. Angie asks, if I was to create a go bag, otherwise known as a bug out bag, what would I include? What are my top 10 items? So we'll round it down here. These are in no particular order here, but obviously you want to have a 72-hour bag. That's the whole idea of a go bag, is a 72-hour bag. So you want to have at least 72 hours worth of food for you or your group, depending on how many people are there. Excuse me. Like I said, I'm coming down from a cold. I got a lot of congestion right now. So anyway, all right. We also have another important item that you should have is a water filter. So something that's going to allow you to procure a lot of water. They got a bunch of really awesome ones that you can find on Amazon. They're really cheap. Some of them are more expensive. And, those are good, too. I think the Ketadine, it has a really, really good one. I think it's like $70, something like that. I'd recommend that one. It can do like up to 200 gallons of water. So that's a lot of water that you can filter on your way to get somewhere else safer, where you're going to have a better water situation. You don't want to carry 3 days worth of water on your back, by the way. That's not really going to be doable. So another thing you're going to want to need, the item number 3 is a hydration pack or a canteen to put your water. So, if you got a Camelback and or just a regular 2 quarts canteen, 1 quart canteen, you need something to store the water that you filter. So that's number 3 for me. Number 4, I would want a individual first aid kit. Those are really important. If you have an injury or a small little cut or something like that, these things can help you, until you get to where you're going, till you can get to a hospital, things like that. So another important item, I would get a full tang fixed blade knife, and full tang means that it's the metal from the blade extends all the way down into the handle, the whole length of the handle. So I think that's important. The reason why I say a fixed blade knife, full tang fixed blade knife, is because it's less likely to break. You can use it, as a tool or a weapon. It's extremely helpful. Excuse me, I'm coughing up a storm here. All right, so anyway, the next item I will get is an axe. Obviously, an axe is good for chopping wood. You may need to do that in a survival situation. You never know, but it's a very useful tool to have. So most axes can be used in many different ways as hammers or pry bars or other things like that. So they are very helpful. Another item that I would have is obviously a sleeping bag. You want to have some warmth. They make really, really awesome jungle bags. I got a couple of these off of, I believe it's Cheaper Than Dirt. They have some pretty decent ones on there. And it's a jungle bag that's good for like 36 degrees, and it's really lightweight, and it's small, it's packable. It's, I got a couple of them, so I like them for camping and things like that. It's not taking up a whole lot of room in my bag or on my bag, and it's not a ton of weight. So as long as you're not in really cold environments, you should be good with that. The next item, number 8, is a tent or a bivvy. Bivvies are really cool. They're lightweight. They're meant for one person, and they're low profile to the ground. So I'd recommend one of those. I went out and I got 2 of these little scout tents. They're for like kids. For their kids tents, basically. So they're meant for 2 children, but they're great for 1 adult. If you lay diagonally and you're like 6 foot or under, then you should be able to fully stretch out and not have a problem. I lay diagonally in the square tent, and I'm stretched out, and I got plenty of room on each side of me for my gear and things like that. So the next item that I would bring, number 9, is a pot for cooking and boiling water, something like that, something that you're able to use in that fashion. So whatever it is, for me personally, I like to bring a pot out. And number 10, and I would say this is a very important item, is a fire starting kit consisting of several different items such as waterproof matches, lighters. You can also use your flint, to start fires. Those are really cool. And I have used in the past dryer lint. I've collected my dryer lint up and put it into a prescription pill bottle. And then I took that out because dryer lint is extremely combustible. If you put a flint spark onto that stuff will light up really quick, and it's really nice to have your kindling with you. Have stuff to build a fire with you already. Stuff that's dry, stuff that's going to burn hot, and you don't have to sit there and mess with the fire for a real long time. Especially in the Pacific Northwest out here, it's wet everywhere. So anyway. Another thing you could do is soak cotton balls in Vaseline and just throw them in a plastic bag. I've done that before. Those burn really slowly and very well. It makes it really easy to start a fire if you have some of those. So I would recommend doing that too. So those are my 10 items, 72 hours of food, a water filter, a hydration pack, individual first aid kit, a fixed blade knife and axe, a sleeping bag, a tent, a pot, and a fire starting kit. So I hope that answers your question, Angie. Okay, the next question we had was from Anthony Forwood, and he asks what I think about staged news stories. He wants to know if I think that they're faked, stories such as the Boston bombing, Sandy Hook, and the Washington Navy Yard shooting. So, I've seen a lot of talk about these things being false flags, staged events, and I've also seen interviews where the same people were at different events, and there's a woman that was at 3 different shootings or something like that, and she was interviewed as a witness or a victim, and it does make me question what's going on at these, This woman is at all these locations, and obviously that's extremely suspicious, So could all these be staged events? Could they be false flags? Yes, could these false flags events be orchestrated by our government to usurp our rights? They could, I won't deny that, but have they? I don't know, and I don't think that anyone knows for sure. There's no smoking gun proof. And that's what makes it a good conspiracy theory, But I don't like to deal in what-ifs or maybes. I'm a conspiracy factist, not a conspiracy theorist. So my biggest concern about these events that happen is that our government uses these events to basically stimulate the population. They're emotional events, obviously, like Sandy Hook. I mean, that was kids getting shot. I mean, that's horrible. That was absolutely awful. And I can actually understand why people can get upset about that. I get it. But the problem I have is that our government is using these events to try to usurp power. I think we need to do everything in our power to eliminate the government's ability to usurp the power. And if they are actually using these events as false flags to basically do power grabs and things like that, then a way to prevent them from continuing that would be to eliminate the ways that they can usurp that power. So what do I mean by that? Anti-gunners, they have a saying, the left, the progressive movement, they have the saying, never let a crisis go to waste. So they use these events like Sandy Hook to try to get support for more gun control. So whether or not, they're staging these events or they're happening independently, the anti-gunners, they're using them for political gain. So we have, President Obama parading around the victims of Sandy Hook, the families of the children that were shot there, and using them as a political piece, a leverage piece. This to me is appalling. I find it absolutely offensive that they do this. So I think that we need to eliminate the ability of the politicians using events like these to push for new restrictions on our rights. And, we get so many different things like the National Defense Authorization Act. That sounds great, right? And the Patriot Act. That sounds great too, right? They like to name these things stuff that sound good. They always name law something that sounds like we're gaining more freedoms, or it's like an awesome sounding name, but it's really a horrible law. Like, can you imagine the next law they have? It's the Americans Are Awesome Act, and who would vote against that? Yeah, how dare you vote against the AAA Act? You're un-American. You don't think Americans are awesome? Never mind the fact that the president can kidnap anyone anytime for any reason, or that the NSA has now placed somebody in your home to live with you, and you have to feed and clothe them. But this is what it's coming to, people. These are the kind of things that the government will try to do if they have a situation. This obviously isn't happening, but we're not far from it. If you think it can't happen, just look at our history. All right, there's a reason why we created the Third Amendment, where the government can't place troops in your house. All right, you can't be forced to quarter a soldier. But this has happened. This happened in history. That's why they put it in there, the Third Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. If you don't know what I'm talking about, read your Constitution, people. But Great Britain, they were actually forcing people in America to quarter Britain troops. And it led to all sorts of problems. Women were getting raped by these British officers who were staying with them. And, they were stealing their food, beating up the husbands. There's so much stuff. And these people were basically acting as a spy for the crown. So if you don't think it can happen, think again. If they don't have any respect for your Second Amendment right, your Fourth Amendment right, your First Amendment right, what makes you think they'll have any respect for your Third Amendment right? This is the kind of thing that it will come to if we don't say no. All right? We need to react very swiftly to politicians who violate the Constitution. Even if they so much as recommend violating our rights, we need to throw them out of office. Can you imagine if the American people were actually awake? We would see so many of our corrupt politicians impeached. So many people have sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. They don't really mean it. The Congress doesn't give a crap about our rights. They just want more power. So how can we prevent these power-hungry politicians from rabble-rousing? All right, how can we stop them from getting the public to try to basically take away the rights of the minority? Well, as you all know, I'm not a fan of democracy, and I would like to clarify that we do not live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. And I'm not a fan of democracy. Neither were our founders. That's why they created such things as the Electoral College. We need to bring back our country to a more constitutional republic. We need to eliminate the tools that these people are using against us. So, are events like Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing false flags? I don't know. But I think I can find an answer to this problem, of it potentially being staged by eliminating the power of executive order. Now, I would love to see Congress choke that executive power out of existence. The executive order, it's been abused through history over and over and over again. And I was talking about, the New Deal, with FDR. And I would love to see the executive order go out. It was never meant to be used this way. And in fact, let me just point out the fact that there are no provisions in the Constitution from what I have been able to find. I've been looking over it for a long time trying to find it. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that the president has the right to use executive orders. That's pretty shocking. When I found out, I was pretty upset. I could not believe that there was nothing in the Constitution that gave him the right. But yet we are influenced and affected in every perceivable way from executive orders. The executive order was only created to basically allow the president to be able to manage his agencies within the executive branch, not to be able to send out some broad sweeping regulation that affects you in every single way of your life. Anyway, I'm not a fan of the executive order. I would love to see some kind of law, and I think if these Sandy Hook, Boston bombing style things are false flag events, and our government is the one that's behind it, and they're trying to use it to usurp power or things like that, rabble rouse, the lack of ability to actually make broad sweeping changes like the executive order, that would be a really great way, a check and balance to eliminate, a lot of the worry that we have of that. I'm a big fan of laws that restrict the government. I'm a big fan of checks and balances. If you guys haven't checked it out, by the way, I know I say this all the time, but I highly recommend reading the Liberty Amendments by Mark Levin. He offers a bunch of amendments that we can propose adding to the Constitution through the state convention, according to Article 5 of the Constitution. I am a big fan of this book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading it, and it's on our store. Check it out, OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link. It's in the gear store, third one down, and it's in the books that I recommend reading. So that book right there, it gives us a lot of good ideas about what we can do to actually bring us back to a more constitutional republic. We hear people all the time saying that we need to do something, but nobody has any plans. Nobody says what we can do, or what their plans are, or anything about what they're thinking about doing. They just generally, we need to take our country back. Well, these are real ways that we can take our country back. This is a great method that we could use to bring us back to a more constitutional republic. So I highly recommend checking it out. Anyway, at this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break.